Hi everyone, welcome to another quad racing motor table talk. Today's motor that I'd like to discuss is the Racerstar BR2406S 2600. I've run this one primarily. I've got about 100 flights on this one now. This is the green edition and this is the fire edition, so you can get it in two different colors. I actually haven't run this motor yet, the red motor yet, but you know, just looking it over, I mean, I think they're essentially identical, just different color. So anyway, this has proven to be a real pleasant surprise. You know, the Racerstar motors, I'm pretty sure they're a line that Banggood sort of carries, but you can also buy them on eBay. This one I actually bought from eBay because of my lack of patience. I wanted to get it. Banggood was out of stock of them for quite a while, so I ended up picking this one up from eBay. It cost me a couple of extra bucks, but anyway, I've been running it you know, pretty hard, primarily with the 6x4 ABC gas prop, testing it, using it as a test motor for different speed controllers, both on the bench and at the field. So you know, I've been putting it through a considerable amount of punishment. This was the one I used on the bench when I was testing most of the settings, playing around with the settings on the Hobbywing Platinum Pro and the Turnigy AE45. So you know, I've got pretty familiar with what helps this motor work the best. So anyway, just a couple things. Its regular price is just under $13 at Banggood. But since they've got them back in stock, they've essentially had them on sale. So I pay for these red ones here. I actually picked up two of these because they were. I was so impressed with this one. They're about $10.56 American, so a very reasonable price. You know, for the power. Now a couple of things. It claims on the write-up that they have Japanese NMB bearings. The bearings do feel very smooth, and you know, even with 100 flights worth of punishment that I've put this through so far, the bearings are holding up really well. And I don't feel, you know, when I check it for heat, although I've been flying it primarily in cooler weather, I don't really feel any heat build up here on the bottom of the motor. Now, one thing to be cautious of, the aluminum that the outside is made of, I think it's CNC milled, but the walls of the bell are fairly thick. It's not the highest quality aluminum, and it is a bit soft. The outside diameter of this motor, it's a 24 millimeter stator. It's a 2406. And because the walls are fairly thick, it's just about 30 millimeters wide here. So when you put it on these X mounts, these things from the center of the hole to the center of the hole there, I think I roughly measured, are about 33 millimeters. So the tolerance when you're putting it into your park jet, you have to be pretty careful. On all four corners here, I've actually scraped the paint off, and at one point in time, I think I wrote a blog post on it. I got a little bit ham-fisted here, and I actually ended up bending up this the part of the bottom plate, and then it was rubbing on the bell. So I was able to take a very thin-bladed screwdriver and very gently bend that back into place, and I've been, you know, running it pretty hard since then, and it's worked out really well. So just be cautious of that. The other thing is both of these are painted. You know, you can tell that they've been painted. Here on the bottom, I can see, you know, where the paint has been a little thick than the others. I have read reports where the you know, over time, perhaps depending on what conditions you fly in, that the aluminum may start to get a little bit corroded, perhaps on the inside. So that might be something to you know, be aware of over time. The magnets in the bottom are you know, they're basically flat. They're not curved like some of the really high quality motors, but they've actually done a pretty good job. Like the air gap in between each magnet is actually pretty good. It's a very you know, very tight tolerance. Also, the tolerance between the stator and the magnets is quite tight as well. Quite snug, as well. There's a very tight tolerance there, which is, things that I've come to learn to look for in pretty much any brushless outrunner. The shaft, to cut down weight, the shaft is hollow all the way through. It's held on the bottom with a little, C-clip, circlip, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's got very smooth bearings, and I've been very pleased with it so far. Now it's a 2 to 4S motor. I'm obviously running it on 3S. On the Banggood description, they say it's a 41.5 amp motor, so I'm not sure how they come up with the 0.5. But and I would say that that's probably actually pretty accurate, because with the 6x4 APC gas and this new prop here that I'll talk about a bit more, this is a GemFan 6045 carbon nylon prop that I've just got and bench tested and just recently flight tested in my last flight test video. I'll talk a bit more about that. I'm pulling around 35 amps, 35 amps on the bench, and at the field, again, flying in fairly cool conditions, but I haven't seen any issues at all. So I would feel pretty confident that you could run this motor at around 40 amps without too much problem. Now flying, I've been flying, obviously I initially tested it with my trusty Turnigy Plush 40 amp speed controller. I've been running it quite a bit with that until I started using this, the Turnigy AE45, again recommended to me by RC Plane Pirate. And like I said, this motor was the one that I used. I went through, when I did a bunch of speed controller testing, I went through all 16 possible settings, combinations of timing and pulse width modulation frequency. So I found that a custom setting of 22.5 degrees on the timing and 24 kilohertz on the pulse width modulation frequency, like many of the other motors, seems to be the best combo for this plane. And it was certainly the best with the 6x4 APC gas prop. I was getting, it was producing about 960 grams, I think, at full throttle, which is, very respectable. The motor is relatively light. Again, it does have a bit, the bell and bottom plate are a bit heavier maybe than some other motors, which is, sort of contributes a bit to the weight. But, when you're only paying, less than 13 bucks at full price for a motor, you can't have everything, I guess. Weighs, maybe I already said this, it weighs 48 grams. So compared to your 2212 2200 motor, it's almost 20 grams lighter with that's with the hardware and the prop and everything else on it. So yeah, so construction wise, again, I'm actually quite pleased with it for an inexpensive motor. They've again, the bell and the plate could probably be a little bit lighter, but in the actual guts of the motor and what makes it go and provides the power, I think they've actually done a really good job with it so far. Again, when I get running it into hotter temperatures or get several hundred flights on it, we'll see how the things like the bearings and all that sort of hold up. So anyway, like I said, recently, again recommended to me by RC Plane Pirate, he had done some testing. So this is, again, the GemFan 6045 carbon nylon prop. It's designed for quads. So when you buy them, you get 4 to a pack, 2 that are, 2 of each rotation, essentially. It's a super stiff prop. It's even stiffer than the 6x4 APC gas prop, and then with a little bit of extra pitch. And it actually is a bit longer. It's the prop tip to tip is about 6 1/8 inch long. The APC props are about 5 15/16, so it's a little bit shorter. The blade's a little bit bigger. But I was absolutely blown away when I tested this on the bench, because it boosted the best mid-range power by about 30 grams compared to the best I saw with the 6x4 APC gas. But where it really blew me away was I saw a 110 gram increase at full throttle, and it's only pulling about 1.1 more amps, so it's pulling 35.3 amps on the bench at full throttle with this prop. And again, I just recently shot a field test video where I tested this motor and this prop together with this speed controller, with the custom settings, you know, everything possible to optimize its performance. And I was just absolutely blown away by the flight experience. You know, it was one of those great experiences where you see great numbers on the bench, and then the field testing backs up what you saw on the bench. That doesn't sometimes always happen. So what has happened now is that it's seriously woken up this this motor. You know, I was, you know, looking at this motor previously as sort of, okay, well, you know, I was kind of splitting the motors into like the real thoroughbreds and then the workhorses, and this was going to be kind of more in the workhorse category. But now actually with this prop, which is you know, it's an inexpensive prop, you get 4 of them for $3.79 US, and this motor, you know, again at $13, and this speed controller, which you can get from Hobby King for about $21. It makes, you know, it's right up there with some of the big boy thoroughbred power setups, you know, 2700 and higher kV. So yeah, definitely if you want to you know, step up this motor, you don't want to spend a whole lot of money on some of the more expensive motors. And again, it's, you know, it's got only drawing 35 amps, whereas some of the other thoroughbred motors on this 6x4 prop are pulling, you know, very close to 40 amps. So very good power. I've said this several times in many of the videos. It's a really good size, and it's hard to find 20. You know, I've looked around quite a bit. It's hard to find a lot of other motors in 2406. A lot of the really good motors, 2306 seems to be a really good size, in some of the 2700 kV plus. The nice thing about this having a little bit extra diameter in the stator, and perhaps it's even because it has a bit heavier of a bell, you know, it almost acts like a flywheel. So when you get that bad boy spinning, it really you know, it's right up there in torque alone. Even if, you know, even if I use this prop here, just in torque alone, it's right up there at the top with all of the other bad boy motors, you know, the thoroughbreds that I've been testing. So I've been impressed right from the first time I started using this motor, how much torque, you know. So I can take it out, and great whole shot acceleration, you know, point the nose vertical. I mean, most of my planes are, you know, only in the, you know, 19.5 to 21 ounce range, so they're not terribly heavy. But yeah, just, you know, gobs of torque and power for days. So really impressed with it. So yeah, if you've got one of these, you want to plunk it into a park jet. So far, the best setup. This motor, the Gemfen 6045 carbon nylon prop, custom settings in this motor, or this speed controller, and you know, for, you know, I guess $3.79, so $4, $21, $25, so, and then $13. So for less than $40, you can have a really good power system. You know, again, we'll see over time how it runs. I'm actually just looking at the wiring here. This is a brand new motor, and this is, again, about 100 flights in it, and no discoloration or anything on the wires. So yeah, like I said, I'm pretty comfortable that this would be a motor you could push. You know, if you propped it down a little bit, I don't know, if you put this, it might, you know, this 6045, if you ran it on 4S, it might push the motor a little hard. You'd have to test it out. But yeah, I think you know, if you put it on 4S battery, you're gonna get some seriously insane power for such an inexpensive motor. So again, I'm very pleased with it. You know, again, it's one of those, you know, nice, great finds for the price, and thus far it's been performing extremely well. So, you know, I look forward to having lots more fun with it. I'll have some information down below, links to testing that I've done with the motor, you know, and just recently with this new prop that RC Plane Pirate recommended to me. And you'll see, you know, on my YouTube channel, my last flight video, test video. It's really producing some seriously good power. So I'm very pleased with it. So Yeah, so thanks very much for watching, folks. Blue skies, calm winds to everyone. Park jet noise, the other sound of freedom, baby. Take care.